On to the arguably, I mean, the one we've all been waiting for, I think, and one we've been waiting for a very long time as well. The 2000 Guineas is on Saturday, and Pinatubo heads up the market at 10 to 11, best price as we speak. Arizona next in at 6 to 1. Cameco is 15 to 2. Kinross is 14 to 1. Tipped up by Andy back in October at 25 to 1. Ranked disappointingly. I'm sure we'll talk about in a second next time out, but still halved in price since Andy put him up. Wichita 14 to 1. Al Suhail 16 to 1. Military March 16 to 1. 25 to 1 bar. Before we talk about your selection, Ken Ross, Andy, let's start with a market leader. It's difficult to, you'd be hard pushed to find a more impressive prospects coming into this race than Pinatubo. How do you view the 10 to 11 on offer at the moment?
I don't really think we've had a horse coming into a Guineas with a profile like him. Frankel himself was still a work in progress, but I mean, this fellow's done what Frankel, could only sort of dream about as a 2-year-old, particularly from a figures perspective as well. Frankel clocked some good numbers, but it was only really in his 3-year campaign that he started hitting the ball out of the park. But this fella's been doing it, straight from off the bat. And his performances at Goodwood in particular, and when he went over to the Curragh, were absolutely sensational. Won by 5 lengths, 9 lengths respectively, but he was beating some good horses and kicking them into touch. I mean, the turn of foot that he showed when he won in the Curragh was just sensational. Arizona was a speck on the horizon, really. He was more workmanlike, as we know, in the Dewhurst, and spectacular. But I quite like that, the fact that he had to get down and dirty that day, and absolutely filthy ground, by the way. I was there that day, and it was really cold and unseasonable, and the ground was like a pudding. But he really fought hard all the way to the line. You could see him as well with an extra furlong going even further clear of the rest of the field. So I don't see the mile as being an issue. They reckon he might be even a Derby horse after the weekend if they come through with flying colours. The one thing we love about him as well is the fact that he settles. He gives himself every chance in a race by settling, and he's also apparently he's a bit of a lamb in the prelims as well beforehand. So he doesn't waste any energy. So he's the perfect racehorse, really. He saves it all for the track. The only thing you could question about backing a short price favourite first time out is obviously all the horses will have improved as well as him over the winter. We don't know because we haven't seen them. So there's an element of guesswork. Plus the fact that we've got a big field and the stalls are going to be on the stand side as well. That usually they're down in the middle. And there was a cutaway in the last couple of years to save any track biases, but they haven't got that this year. So it means that potentially if there is a golden highway, which may develop the day before on the Friday, which we'll get a look at, the horses that are drawn right next to the stand side fence, i.e. high, might have a little bit of a tactical advantage. And, he's got to bustle his way through the field drawn in 7. So, there are, if there's going to be a chink in his armour, it might not necessarily be ability. It might be actually working his way into a challenging position. Therefore, the ones that I'm looking at, obviously I've already backed Kinross, he's drawn 12. And the other one who beat Kinross, Cameco, who I think is a very talented horse, might just have, half a chance of causing an upset. It's hard to see Kinross turning the form around with Cameco on that Newcastle run. But the fact that he's been so heavily backed again, despite getting hammered, I mean, he should be a 33 to 1 shot off the back of that Newmarket. But the money keeps coming from him. There's been lots of positive vibes from the Beckett yard. He's almost actually shorter in places than Cameco, which seems, almost unthinkable, considering he's got 4 lengths to find. But there might have been something wrong with him that day. It was off the back of a high-speed figure first time out where he might have bounced. He was a bit keen, a bit fresh at Newcastle in a Group 1 from a maiden. It was a bit of a culture shock. And albeit it might be that that's as good as he was, I've got a sneaky feeling that he is a bit better than that. He's going back to the Rowley Mile, which, of course, we know he runs the track really well. And he's got a good draw. So I'll be hopeful with Kinross, at least running a half a decent race, better than he did at Newcastle. But from a pure betting perspective, Cameco ticks all the boxes. He's a Group 1 winner. He's got track form. He's absolutely crying out for a straight run, strong mile. Of course, his yards 2 for 2 so far. They hit the ground running last season. So what price is he Cameco at the moment, did you say, Rand?
15 to 2 best price with 888, 7 to 1 general.
I mean, if you could get that kind of price, 4 places on the day, I can't believe bookmakers won't go 4 places here. He looks an absolute nail each way, Cameco.
Interesting as well, in that race that you mentioned where Cameco beat Kinross, Mogul also in that race, who's been very well back for the Derby, kind of a similar run to Kinross as well. So suggesting that race could be very strong indeed. Mike, start at the top as well with Pinatubo. Andy's given him a glowing reference. Are you do you have similar respect and admiration for Pinatubo and what he's done so far?
Yeah, I think you have to, really. Just a very good horse. I mean, that probably underestimates him as well. He's, superb horse, isn't he? If he turns up in the form he was in last year, then I don't think anything will beat him, really. I think it's personally as simple as that. But I think there's some pretty big caveats to him. He looked more of a 2-year-old than a lot of the horses did he was running against last year. How much he's grown. I mean, it's going to be massive questions. I think it's very hard to back him. I think it was easier to back Frankel at an even shorter price, just because I know he'd obviously had a prep, but Frankel was much more likely to progress, in my opinion, than Pinatubo was at the same stage, just for the way he was bred and the size and the shape of him. I mean, he should take all the beating. I will make a case for a few of them in behind that he runs against. I'm going to put one up at 50-1, actually. I do think this is a big price. A horse that I like a lot called Starcat, who I think will run very well. He would have been one of the highest rated 2-year-olds I rated all of last season when he won at Kempton. There were 3 horses in that race that pulled quite a long way clear. None of the other 2 have run since, but it was a very good piece of form. He is an expensive Lope de Vega sire that's doing incredibly well. I'd be a bit disappointed if he couldn't improve past a lot of the horses that are shorter prices than him. It's a big ask for him to win on his second start, but he is also 50-1, so you're getting the value there. I think Kinross will run well. I think he'll want soft ground, personally, as the year goes on. The whole family have always wanted soft, and obviously his debut was on soft, but he should be okay. I mean, there have been very rave reports about Arizona. Apparently he's flying over in Coolmore, but I think it's a tough race. I mean, if I was going to have a bet, the only thing I'd do is back Starcat, probably a bit of win and each way at 50-1. I think he could be anything. I know he's incredibly highly regarded, so 50-1 will do me well.
Starcat 50-1. I'm pretty sure on debut Starcat opened up at 40-1, went off 9-1, and won by a couple of lengths as well. So done it before. Starcat 50-1 with Labrooks, Bet Victor, and Coral as short as 33-1 elsewhere. Anything more to add at the other end of the market, Andy?
Yeah, I think one of the most talented horses in this race is Suhail. I think he's got his quirks. Sometimes his head carriage has been a little bit questionable. It's an odd thing, really, because every time I've watched Suhail, he's always looked to me as though he wants coming back in trip rather than going up. But you listen to Charlie Appleby's reports, they want to be bumping him up in trip. They see him as a middle distance horse, which it looks an absolute mythical to me. At Sandown, he looked like he was going to come and win the Solaria. Then he sort of didn't get home up the hill. He got out battled by his stable companion, albeit on soft ground, Military March, towards the back end of the season in the autumn stakes. And every time I see him run, I think this horse wants 7 furlongs or even dropping back. And yet they think he's a 1.25 mile horse, but he's got a massive amount of talent. He'll come there definitely going well at 2 hours because of the way he cruises through his races. What he'll end up doing, I do not know, but he's an interesting horse going forward, him. If he were mine, he'd be a Jersey Stakes horse all over. That kind of race, 7 furlongs when they go flat out, you can just come through. I just, unless I'm missing something, I'm seeing something that somebody else can't see. I just don't think he's got a cat and house chance of getting 1.25 miles. So this will be D-Day with Suhail, which way they decide to go. But I'm hoping he travels, doesn't get home, and then they drop him back in trip for Ascot.
So another one for the notebook rather than a selection for Saturday.
Yeah, because he's just a very incredibly talented horse.
Okay, that is the 2000 Guineas preview for you there. Respect being shown to Pinatubo at the top of the market, but a few bullets in behind with a 50-1 tip as well. And Mike has certainly banged in a couple of big price winners on this podcast before, so worth taking note.